Hey everybody, welcome to episode 15 of Restoration Z. Don't forget, if you like these videos, to hit that like button and subscribe if you're new here. In the last episode you will have seen I was having some problems with one of my dampers and I believed it to be the O-rings. Well, I still believe that to be the case. I have ordered a new set of O-rings for both of them, so they should be here in a few days. They're having to come from Germany, but that will allow me to replace all the O-rings in both, and if that doesn't solve the problem, then we'll have to take the next step, but I'm pretty damn sure it's the O-rings. So they're currently just sat here waiting to get on, and I've got the parts for them in individual baggies up here, all clean and safe. So that will be all good. Another bit of information is I now have confirmation from Haslemere Motorcycles that Suzuki had all of the plastics in stock, and as I mentioned, between Suzuki UK and Haslemere Motorcycles, they are supplying a brand new set of plastics for this build, which is absolutely amazing. There's only one thing to that, which is if I want any of the original decals, I need to buy those, and I looked at the prices of the OEM graphics, and the only ones I'd want actually would be the ones on the tank shrouds, because they match up with some swishes that are lacquered into the tank, where they're looking at around £90-something a side. So I think I'm going to get a custom graphics kit done just for the tank and shrouds. The rest of it will probably look plain. I don't know. We'll see where we go with that. But just to let you know, that's what's going on with that. And yet again, another massive thank you to WeMoto.com, because they've managed to get hold of the OEM chain rubber for the swing arm, because I'll show you why we needed this. I didn't think it was too bad, but it is. They also managed to get hold of the rollers, and they also got me some O-rings, some seals for the swing arm, and this is one of the jobs we're going to do today. So again, huge thanks to WeMoto.com for supporting this build. They have done a huge amount for this build, so thank you to them. If you're after parts for a motorcycle, they have them. I've never known them say, I can't get that. They just say, we don't have them at the moment, but we can get one, or I'll work on that, and then they come back and they've got the part for you. They've never said to me, no, we just flat out can't get that, sorry mate. Highly recommended. So we're going to do that in a second. These bits here you might notice, this is the brace for the handlebars. I've stripped the paint off of this because it was clearly spray painted with some pretty nasty spray paint. If it was stock, I would have been surprised. I'm also surprised by how nice the finish underneath is. I'm thinking, well, if this is Ali, or is it? What is it made of? I need something magnetic. Where are my magnets? Yeah. Oh, hang on. Okay, that is non-magnetic, very light. I'm not sure if it's Ali though. How soft is it? Okay, that's Ali. I'm pretty sure now, I've just tested, I think this is aluminium. In which case, you could just polish this up and leave it as it is. So I'm trying to decide what to do with that. Also, I've taken the paint off the reservoir, which is very nasty, and it's all peeling off. And I've got to decide what to do with this. But again, this is a metal of itself. And do I actually need to paint this? Or is it going to oxidize? I'm just thinking putting paint on a brake reservoir is just asking for trouble when, well, it kind of looks the same without the paint. Any advice or tips on that one I would appreciate, because I'm not sure what these are made of, and I don't know if they're going to oxidize or do weird things if they're not painted. But with a wire wheel and maybe a bit of sandpaper, I could probably get that a lot more even. And it would look fine, So I need to decide if I'm going to paint these or not, but I'll save that for a sunny day when the temperatures are better and the paint will actually go off properly, because it is not very nice weather at the moment. Rear shocks. If you remember back a few episodes, I mentioned the white one is the one that came on the bike. The yellow one was one that I picked up from a mate who didn't use it in a build. He was planning to use it in. This has only done about 5,000 miles, it had, and the one on the bike has done about 30,000. So what I did was I just switched over the springs. So now I've switched the springs over. This sort of shock body is actually the one that was on my bike. This is the new one. This is my spring, however, because I wanted to keep the white one, and I thought it was very badly damaged from paint chips and stuff, but if you actually look at it, it was mostly dirt. So that's nice. But I will show you quickly how you take one of these apart. It'll take 2 seconds to do. It might surprise you as well. Okay, so the shock lives on the bike this way around. This is the top. But if you want to take the spring off of one of these, you have to do a little trick at the bottom, and you would be amazed as to what's actually holding this spring on. So if I just put this upside down, actually I'll flip it that way around in the vise. So you have the 2 rings at the bottom. You have a locking ring and an adjuster ring, which allows you to adjust your preload. So you just wind that all the way down, wind this all the way down as far as it will go, because you need space at the top here. There are different ways that shocks come apart. This is just an example of how this type comes apart, and this happens to be one off of a Suzuki DRZ400SM. Sometimes I believe these have like a cutout where you can like hook it down and pull it out sideways, but obviously, well, you can see there isn't one on this one. The way this is held together, right, is, well, you pull this little bit down, which if it's dirty is not so easy. And you see this little clip. This barely more than a millimetre thick piece of sprung wire is the thing that holds your shock together. So I think you can see why I didn't bother filming that, because literally all I did was clean this and switch the spring. Alright, so we put that on, like so. Get a little clip down. I mean, the reason this works is because it jams. It's mechanically held in place. It's like a key. And they don't need to be that big to be very, very strong and do their job. But it is still kind of amazing that that's all that's holding your suspension together. Although I suppose, actually, if this did go, the worst case scenario as well, you lose spring tension, so it's going to completely press the damper until it hits the spring again. So the spring will sit on somewhere on the swing arm or something here, and it's not going to, you know, the bike's going to drop a bit, but it's probably not going to do anything catastrophic. So maybe that explains it. But it's very interesting how such a small little thing like that can hold that much weight and take abuse for that long. This one's going into storage, unless it turns out there's something wrong with that one, in which case it'll be being switched back. But this gives me the opportunity that I could actually get this recharged and stuff. So this is our new old shock, and it was another one of the jobs I had to knock out before I can actually start getting the bike back together, because when I put the engine back in, I want to be able to get the swing arm back on at the same time, because the main pin holds it all together. So it's going to be a sort of an all-in-one job with the engine, the swing arm and the suspension. Okay, well, as I mentioned, I need to get all the jobs out of the way that stop me from getting the bike back together, and sorting the swing arm out is one of them. And as I say, thanks to Moto, we've got the chain rubber and stuff to replace. As I mentioned, it turns out my old chain rubber had actually worn all the way through, and we have these two marks. They actually look really bad on camera because there's dirt in them, and they're like lifted up a bit. The reality is this only about a mil deep. If I so wished, I could get some aluminium wire for my MIG welder. I've got some argon, and I could weld over that, you know, clean it out, weld over it, smooth it off. My TIG doesn't do aluminium, unfortunately, so I can't do that. But it's not structurally going to make a difference, and it's going to get covered up now anyway. But yeah, it's just to say, this is the sort of thing that happens if your chain guard rubs through. It looked fine on the top, kind of, but it wasn't until I turned it on the underside that I found just here, as you can tell in that corner, it had worn through and it was doing what it did. Oh well. Right, what was I talking about before I got sidetracked again? Yes, last night I was looking online for things which, you know, don't change the look of the DRZ, but do improve things. And one of the things that the DRZ needs to really improve on, I'm just running a tap through these just to make sure they've got good clean threads, is the headlight's not great. I mean, it's a dirt bike. It wasn't designed to be a night running bike necessarily, but the standard headlight on them is not great. Well, there is a company out there who make a drop-in LED kit. It's been designed for the bike. You know, it shouldn't be one of these nightmare cases. You know, you hear about sticking the wrong things in and it melting stuff. This looks like a decent bit of kit. And I've contacted the company off the off chance and said, hey, look, I'm doing this build. Would you be interested in working with me on this? And they've said, yeah, that sounds interesting. So, you know, nothing's set in stone yet. I'm still just about to discuss things with them, but it would be very cool to do that. It will very slightly change the look of the front headlight from the front perspective, but it's the same dimensions as the stock one, so it fits in completely normal, and it makes a massive difference on the light output. Okay, so it's time to put the chain rubber on. This is nice and easy. This just slaps over here and you screw it in with 3 screws. The screws that came out, if you remember, they were very tight and stiff, but I've actually managed to keep them in good nick. They're perfectly reusable. Even the one that I thought was starting to sort of mush up a little bit, I did this trick, was what you do is it's a gunsmithing trick I've learned from Mark Novak actually. It's not a gunsmithing trick, it's just a trick, it's just a trick, whatever it is. You can basically hammer the slightly munched screw head flat again, and you can get all of the metal back down, and okay, it's not as strong, but it does actually return the material opposed to taking material away. But anyway, yeah, so these have already been cleaned up, although that one's a little bit rusty in the bottom pocket, so I'll quickly put a wire brush through that. Right, some may not see the logic in this, but I've just put a very thin layer of red rubber grease on the inside edge of this. Reason being, it's going to get grease under it at some point anyway, because it's next to the chain. I'd rather there was something in there keeping that grease and the dirt out. So rather than having a gap, it should seal a little better. Or it might just do nothing at all. But it makes me feel like I did something. So all I've got to do now is screw in the 3 screws in the little cups. As I mentioned, when I was taking these out, they were basically seized. I think that's down to the fact that these are steel, or yeah, I think they're steel bolts, screws, and they're going into aluminium, and different metals will cause stiction issues. So I'm using a bit of thread locker, hoping what that will do is give, you know, something between the two surfaces so they can't bond to each other. I have to say, I'm really looking forward to getting to the actual proper rebuild of this bike. Like, I know there's lots of little fiddly, annoying, little time-consuming jobs I have to get out of the way first, and then we can get on with it. I'm doing the organised thing of get everything ready first and then get the bike back together. But I've got to wait on parts anyway, so that's fine. So there we go, one new chain guide installed. Next is just a couple of seals down here, just little dust seals. As you see, it's a little bit manky in here. I meant to clean that beforehand, but hopefully most of that will come off with the seal. Before you pull your old seal, check the new seal. It looks about right, which it does. Right. As I've mentioned, these bearings are absolutely fine, so I will just give these a re-grease if I can get in there. So look how clean they are. But it's because you've got these metal caps that go in. Need to pay more attention now. There is more layers to this than I realised. Okay, I get it. There's a little stack of bearings in the side of the swing arm I'll show you in a second. It's quite impressive actually, that how well it's done to keep the dirt out. Okay, so these are some little bearings, and they're actually captured, these needles, and I'll show you how this little stack goes together. It's quite clever, but this was, well, it was like this. And I thought that was just grease, but it was full of dust. I think I learnt this one from Ichiban Moto. Basically, if you haven't got an ultrasonic parts washer, you can just put your phone on vibrate, and then you just put that on there, and yeah, you've got yourself a little ultrasonic parts washer. That'll do it in no time. Whoa, look how clean it's come out. As if by magic it must have been the phone, not the 10 minutes in the brake cleaner. That little thing has done its job for 30,000 miles, and it's going to keep doing its job for probably about another 5. Knowing my luck. Oh god. Right, I need to get these washers cleaned up too. Where's my phone? I need to get my parts washer out. No way. They've cleaned up so well. Maybe it was the grit from the ultrasonic cleaner that helped loosen that off. I'd say actually this one froze at some point, because you can see a dark side over here and you can see some markings over here, and it's a bit rough. So I think that at some point froze. Wait, what are these made of? What are they made of? Where is my magnet? Where is my magnet? Let's try cleaning them up with some phosphoric acid. Is that attacking this on the surface or not? There are bubbles forming from the corrosion opposed to everywhere, so that's good. So let's just leave those for 5 minutes and hope that they clean them up. This is basically the same as using like vinegar or something like that, but it's a little bit stronger and it's better to use on stainless steel. This is steel. As far as I know, there's no reason you can't use this on steel. Normally you should wear gloves. I didn't touch it when I take them back out. I will wash them off with water to neutralise the acid. I'll rub my face with bicarbonate of soda and have a bath. Sorry, the internet's just gone a bit crazy. How is that rusty? It doesn't look like it's steel. It is steel, it's definitely steel. In fact, it's less magnetic. I would have said these were a very low grade stainless. WD-40 versus brake cleaner for cleaning up these spindles because they're equally dirty. Okay, well it cleaned up the surface of here very nicely. It hasn't cleaned up in there too well, and it's taken some of the dirt off there. But that was the brake cleaner, and it flashes off so quickly I don't think it has time to soften stuff up. Opposed to WD-40, there's not a lot in it, surprisingly. Okay, it would appear there is actually some very small dents. Blimey, the weather's getting nasty. Some very small dents. I think it's more surface than anything on that side, but if I flip these and give them a sand down with some 2000 grit, I can repolish those surfaces, and the inner surfaces are the only important ones, so I can have some nice running surfaces for the bearings, opposed to having to replace these. I'm just continuing to clean everything up. This sleeve, which goes through here, and then the main axle goes, with a pivot point, goes through the frame, the swing arm, and the engine, and then back out the other side. It's obviously very important that you don't want these to seize up and have dirt in them. And I've noticed that they're actually, well, that one's not too bad. But this one was quite sort of, it had a lot of surface rust in there. It's not actual rust, because these are like some sort of semi-stainless steel. They're slightly magnetic, but they're not fully. Well, anyway, I got some WD-40. I got my Dremel with this attachment on it, and was able to get it just the right size, and get it in there and up and down with it running. Hang on, I'll show you. Next show. I've also used that little brush to clean up any of the sort of rust that was down in here, and you might notice it now looks kind of a brassy copper colour. That's because I'm using a soft brass brush, and it will transfer the brass onto the steel because this is so much softer than the steel, so I know I'm not going to damage the steel. Also, technically, that is now some form of anti-corrosion coating, because brass doesn't actually rust. There is actually a technique like this, which I learned from Michael Cthulhu, where you can heat up a piece of steel, and then you go over it with a wire brush really hard on a drill, and it will deposit the brass down, and you can actually brass coat something that way. So, yeah, I'm not suggesting that's going to stop it rusting, I'm just saying that's a thing. I basically sprayed it with brake cleaner, spanned them a lot, sprayed them again, flushed it, wiped it, flushed it, until I could get as much out as I could. Then I'm going to use an all-purpose waterproof grease. This is good for bearings. And I really need to pack this back in because these bearings need grease all the way around them. So you kind of squidge it in. Ooh. And then you have to press into the bearings and kind of turn them, so you get grease all the way around. Basically what this grease is doing is keeping water out but also lubricating. First goes in one of our cleaned up washers, squeege. And I'm going to put a layer of grease on that. Then we put in our bearing, and then again that needs to have grease squidged down into it. Then we take the next washer, put the shiny side down. Then we take our seals, thanks to Wemoto.com. Links in the description. And remember, with seals, as I mentioned in the last episode, I can probably show you better now. Right, one side of the seal has a cup. One side is flat. If you remember that the cup side always goes towards the medium you're trying to retain, in other words, this grease, you will be orientating them in the correct direction. I believe that to be a universal law, but now someone's going to tell me about 50 examples where you put them in backwards for some reason. And hopefully, because these are quite small and thin, I should be able to just see these by hand. And we take our tube, which I'm going to again lightly grease, because we want grease everywhere. Like so. You can smush that grease around. And it actually doesn't come out that far, because these, which again I'm covering in grease, get pushed in the top, and they actually push that spindle back down. There we go. But you see all the grease that just squidged out? I'm actually going to let that go down in that tube. Spread it out a bit. By the way, as I'm doing this, I'm aware that a lot of the things that are said when it comes to mechanical things sound a little bit wrong. This is not normally intentional, apart from when it completely is, and you'll never know when those places are. So there you go, one cleaned, degreased, re-greased, and reassembled with a new seal. Swing arm bearing feels absolutely fine. I wonder if it'd be faster if I just dump a ton in there like that. Oh yeah, this is way faster. Just be 10 times messier. Squeege. Ah. Slippery devil. God, the rain's really getting up. You can probably hear it in the background. I'll walk closer. Oh yes, rain! While I'm here, I just realised I should do this. Well, look how clean that is. Sorry about the rain, it's getting a bit intense. I've just discovered this. Unless I'm mistaken, isn't that supposed to be a grease nipple? Why is that being ground off? Because you can even see the hole for it. And it doesn't, it's like kind of sharp when they've ground. Who did that and why? I don't understand people sometimes. Oh, look, grease nipple's not working. Grind it off. There we go. So that's all re-greased and that's all done. Oh no, I need a cloth. There we go, one swing arm all done, serviced and ready to go back on. It was at this time he realised the mic came unplugged again. I hope the audio's alright from here on out. My bad. I'm probably gonna glue this in. I think you can guess what job we've got to do on this. This one isn't gonna last long. I need to take this off anyway to clean under here, but I want to have a look and see if my countershaft nut is still done up properly, because they have a habit of loosening themselves. I have made a video on this, and after doing that video, someone went and checked theirs and was like, holy crap, mine's loose too. I'm hoping that what I did in that video has worked and this is not loose. If it is loose, then I've got really lucky again. Right, best way to clean stuff like this, get a wooden stick, scrape everything you can get out, and then soak it in something like, I don't know, paraffin or plastic, okay, I think it is. It's loose. But the only thing that stopped that from coming undone, again, was the tab washer. It's incredible. Full of the output shaft. That feels really nice and tight and good. Huge thanks to my Patreon supporters, as always, and the people who've supported this build via PayPal. I have put quite a bit of money into this now. You know, when you start adding up all the paints and all this stuff, even with all the help I've had from the companies where I've not had to pay for it, I have still forked out quite a lot of money, and thankfully, as I say, it's with your support that I'm able to sustain that. So if you'd like to help out in the build, there are many ways to do that. As I say, joining Patreon, you can help directly through PayPal, or I've got stickers available still. If you want to grab a sticker, go for that. Etsy store, it's pretty much the only thing on my Etsy store now, but stickers are there if you want them. I also do the Spice 110 key tags and all that. My normal merch is not available at the moment until my normal merch guys reopen, but that hopefully shouldn't be too long now. So yes, to those people, thank you very much for your support. If you're not able to do something like that, I totally understand it, it's fine. But if you could maybe hit the like button, I'd really appreciate that. Anyway, before video. As you can see, it's pure filth and grottiness. And we've got some, I've sprayed this with WD-40, where's the side? It's not right here. You see this oxidisation? Maybe you can't. It just feels a bit gritty, probably salty. Feels very salty. Shall I lick it? Will you like the video if I lick it? It's not salty. Doesn't really taste of anything, to be fair. Go on then, hit the like button. That was the deal. Join me in several weeks. Catch you next time. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to hit the like button and subscribe to see future videos. This channel is made possible by the support of the audience. Please consider joining my Patreon to get early access to videos, questions answered in the monthly Q&A, your name on screen, and some exclusive content, all for as little as $1 a month. You can also check out the links in the description to my merch and other ways to directly support the channel. Thanks for watching.